Thank you so much, Deputy Minister. We will now take questions. We will start here and check if there are any hands. I'm seeing two. And then we will then go to the WhatsApp line. I don't see... Oh, Ignatius is there. Okay, great stuff. Let's start with the hands. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Mia Slavik. I'm from Marula Media. I've got three questions, if you can just bear with me. Firstly, last year some schools were allowed to open if they could guarantee that they've got safe protocols in place. Would it be the same in this case? And just on what science or what data is this choice being made? And then, are you going to subsidize online schooling for public schools?
Okay, thank you for those questions. All right, at the back.
From Newsroom Africa. The decision to delay the school reopening, I'm wondering what would have changed then, because the reason for the postponement obviously was to accommodate certain things, but one would assume because schools were not opening in the first week of January, then schools would have started preparing earlier for the reopening.
All right, that's fine. Ignatius, WhatsApp line?
Thanks, Mr. Clara. I have a few questions.
Okay.
First question from Janjan Jobert from Marula Media. Is the Minister Mtsega's illness COVID related? And I have Christian Duplessis from Network 24. What is the role of the new variant on the decision to postpone the reopening of schools?
All right, please slow down. They're taking notes. Thank you.
Okay, I'll repeat this one. Christian Duplessis from Network 24. What is the role of the new variant on the decision to postpone the reopening of schools? And I have Genevieve Quintal from Business Day. Has DBE considered a differentiated approach? Why hold back schools in places where COVID numbers are low? And then I have Nadia from Network 24. Can you elaborate at this stage on the possibility of the 2020 matric results being announced later than the planned release date, which at the moment is 23rd of Feb? And I have Anton Major from Pretoria FM. Should COVID-19 cases continue to rise, will the department consider a further delay on the reopening of schools? And then I have Judith Jacobs from ENCA. What happens to private schools that are already open? I think we can take those ones for now.
Okay. All right. Yeah. No, I just wish I could respond to some of these questions, but I'll give the DM the opportunity to do that. It's not my space today. DM, please come help.
The WhatsApp questions were very fast. But I think Mr. Matthews has captured some. He will help me in responding. I was trying to write very fast. Some schools last year were allowed. We must all remember that COVID-19 in the previous years was not there. So the plans did not cater for COVID-19. So what happened last year in 2020 was a lesson to all of us. So when we reopened schools in June, we allowed for the differentiation approach because of the cases which differ from one area to another. So some schools were allowed to open when in other instances some schools could not open at the time, because remember, we didn't have plans to cater for COVID-19. So our response would not have been equal in term, and because the circumstances also differ from one school to another. So that's why we felt that those that are ready, let them go in. Those that are still not ready, but we were helping them and learning from those that are continuing, because as we allow others to continue, we derive lessons from them to help those that were not ready. That's what happened. So we are working very hard to improve on the e-learning, and we want to appreciate all the stakeholders who are helping us to make this e-learning a success. Yes, we still have difficulties in rural areas where we have a challenge sometimes of connectivity, but we are working with all the service providers, all of them, I can name them, including SABC, radio and television, and Vodacom, Telcom, all of them are working together with them to improve on the ICT and the e-learning, because it shows that moving forward, that is the way to go. So we cannot fold our arms and say we're doing nothing. So the delay, in the speech I indicated that when we look at the health facilities, they are overstretched and stressed. And so we said, let's sit back and look at the direction the pandemic is taking. Because if we say now everybody go to school on the 25th of January and 27th of January, then we experience a massive contraction. Then what will happen if the systems of health now cannot cope in some other areas? So we said, let's work together with the Department of Health and hospitals and see what happens. And we also want to check the status of our educators, because we presented the readiness and we presented the post-provisioning and all this, but find that we have lost many teachers. So when they go to report to school on the 25th, the principals and the SMT, they will know who is coming and who's not coming, who is infected, who's still at home, who is a comorbidity case. Then they will register all those, because we will be working with all the schools, all officials in the 9 provinces and districts to get that information that will allow us to plan. It's not a matter of postponing because of fear or what, but we need to take care of the lives of teachers and the lives of learners. So is Minister COVID related? Minister is at home. She's not well. She's at home. She is fine in our own eyes. When we speak with her, we look at her, she's fine. She is at home. I don't know about the COVID status, but she is recovering at home and she will be back on next week. She could have been back even today, but doctors said she must relax and rest. That's what she's adhering to now. The role of the new variant, no one knows. Even health, they rely on research. That every day we need to research. So no one exactly know what turn is it going to take in the next month or two. We are relying on what is happening and the research. So health will, from time to time, advise basic education to say, yes, now you can open, now this can happen, because of the study that they conduct on a daily basis. So not to say that it's because of the new variant that we say we postpone the opening, but we want to study it and see if it's not going to destabilize the program of learning and teaching. The differentiated approach is always there. Even now, when we say schools will open, principals and SMTs and SGPs will go and prepare their schools. Some schools may be ready before others, because on the 25th, generally the sector is opened, but we delayed the coming of learners because we want the SMTs and the teachers to be ready in terms of receiving the learners and to find their status of health if they are coming, so that we also update our post-provisioning posts and norms. So why are we holding some at ransom? We are one country under the leadership of one president. And even if you are an independent school, a private school, or what, you are a school. And there are many people in the school. And they operate within the same community and the same society of the Republic of South Africa. So we cannot treat others as if they live somewhere where we don't know. It's not a matter of punishing anybody. It's a matter of taking care of the lives of the people of South Africa. We're taking care of the lives of teachers and the lives of non-teaching staff and the learners. The life is very important. It's a priority to all of us. So it's not a punishment. It's not holding anyone at ransom that you cannot go to school. We want to observe the situation under the guidance of health sector. Then we know that from here we can all move together to the same direction, because all our children are equally important in South Africa. There's a question about the release of the results on the 23rd. I didn't catch it clearly, Mr. Matthews. You'll answer this one. A further delay, standing here, I cannot say that we'll consider a further delay or not, depending on the circumstances on the ground. When we get a report that things have changed in the country, you cannot go on and say we open by hook or crook. But if we are able to manage and stabilize, then we will be able to open the schools. And what we must know as South Africans is that the coronavirus is here with us. We need to live with it. And we don't say because there's coronavirus, we don't eat. We do eat, and we buy the food from the shops. And the shops are opened. People are selling there. It means life must go on, and people must, if we want people to eat, it means somebody must go to work to produce that food. And if somebody is at work, it means the economy has started working, and even learning and teaching must continue as part of building and growing the economy of our country. The last question, I didn't get it clearly, Mr. Matthews. You'll handle it. What happened to public schools? I think that one you'll handle. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. May I start with a question that relates to, sorry, I'm not used to taking this off. The question that relates to the private schools that have already opened. Deputy Minister did indicate that there were broad consultations that were held with a variety of stakeholders in the sector. And those consultations included the bodies that are coordinating independent schools, NAISA and ISASA. At the meetings we had with them, they had agreed that they'll persuade the schools that had already reopened to consider following the new protocol on the reopening of schools. I just wanted to emphasize that point. There is a question that has been raised via Mr. Mhlanga, that a Deputy Minister mentioned teachers and learners, SMTs, but not mentioned support staff. We are of the view that the SMTs, because they are going earlier, will determine the priority needs of a school and will make a determination as to whether their such support staff should come with or before the teachers come. It's a determination that relates to management within a school. It's not a matter that I think we can pronounce broadly. In relation to the announcement of results, remember there's a timetable for examinations, and that timetable is predetermined. What has been announced as the date for the release of the examinations for the 2020 NSC will remain as such unless and until Minister Umalusi and the other relevant bodies make a totally different determination on that one. The last one, which I also want to stress, which relates to what the DM has already responded to, is the fact that we need to understand that there's no mathematical equation on the spread of the COVID virus. It just happens. And we respond to that. So whatever action we can take, particularly with relation to the spread, is not a determination we can make proactively. But the plans we are putting in place are actually influence that type of a decision. We preempt that these, from the trends that exist, that these things must be put into consideration so that we're not taken off guard on them. The last point relates to the consultations the Cabinet is making. Remember, there's a Ministerial Advisory Committee for the Minister of Health. There was a meeting after the NCCC on Tuesday of that committee, which advised the NCCC, Cabinet, and the ministers involved in this area, which would be the Minister of Health, the Minister of Basic Education, Minister of Higher Education and Training, on what could be considered, particularly in our case for the delayed reopening of schools. You'll remember the higher education program was extended to accommodate the COVID realities. So higher education for now seems to be fine. We are the ones that are directly affected because we're the earlier reopening date. So we are advised by the structures that Cabinet has put in place to deal directly with COVID-related imperatives. Thank you very much, dear. Thank you, Mr. Mufwethu. Private schools. Oh, sorry. I'm requested to repeat the response on private schools. The determination that was made at our consultation from both NAISA and ISASA was that NAISA and ISASA will persuade the schools that have reopened to follow the reopening protocol. The ones that have not yet reopened will also be persuaded to consider delaying their reopening to follow the reopening protocol. I hope that one is clear now. So those schools we are expecting, unfortunately, we can't direct them. We're expecting that they will consider closing and reopening as stated by the Deputy Minister. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Matthews. Can you go to the second round of questions? Let's start with the WhatsApp line this time because there's a lot more there. I'm also receiving some from my side, but let's start with you.
Yes, there's quite a lot.
All right.
So I have a question from Matlako Komani from SABC News. DG Mwile on Monday spoke about the department's researchers that said that they were happy with reopening on the 27th of Jan. What has changed in the last 4 days? Were your researchers wrong? And I have another question from Tumelo Zulu from SABC Channel Africa. Seeing that the new strain of COVID is prevalent amongst the youth, what are some of the measures in place by the department to ensure safety for both learners and teachers? And I have a second question from Matlaka Komani from SABC. How will these extra 2 weeks affect the rest of the school calendar and the curriculum catch up? Since last year the entire curriculum was not covered. Should the extension of school holidays go beyond 2 weeks? What is the plan for the matric class of 2021? And I have Evelyn Morris from Custom Local Media. Is there any chance this educational year will be even worse than last year, with many learners not being able to go to school? Is there any chance we can have statistics about how many learners didn't pass the grade last year and are having to repeat this year? What will happen if this year is just as problematic? And then I have another question from Tseho Moahi from ESCA. what happens with ECD centers? And I have another question from Matlatsi Mokhale from Museum Africa. What is the department going to do in terms of school fees? Are parents expected to pay for the month of January? And I have L, September from Sun newspaper. Has there been increase in educators going on early retirement as a direct or indirect result of COVID-19? Is DBE and Department of Home Affairs in talks to, is DBE and DOH in talks to amend existing health and safety protocols for schools? Will DBE be assisting, especially our rural schools, with the purchasing of PPEs in preparing for the reopening of schools? I have more questions. I don't know if I can continue, Mr. Mhlanga.
Yeah, please continue.
Okay. I have Johnny Sai Marumo, African News Agency. Is there a number of teachers, education officials infected with COVID-19 so far? Elena Caputo from Eurovision News. What is the long-term plan for school? Has something been considered, considering the COVID-19 situation remains unpredictable? Learners risk losing their right to education. And then I have Virasbera Network 24. What will happen if the situation remains relatively unchanged by 15 February? Will the department consider to again postpone the opening of schools? And also it says, can you indicate how many markers across the country had to withdraw due to COVID-19 related illness, and how many sadly passed away due to implications related to the virus? And I have another question from Sumen Naidu from Newsmax. Will the department resupply masks to learners as it did in the last return to school? And any updates on the progress of marking of the metric papers? What will it be completed on time? I think those are only questions.
Okay.
Mr. Mhlanga.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you. Let's come back to the room. Linda.
Linda Mnisi from Newsroom Africa. As you prepare for the reopening of schools, I'm wondering if you already have stats of the number of teachers or perhaps that have tested positive and learners. Have you started this process? Number two, DM, you mentioned that you're still in talks with stakeholders around, the e-learning, especially when it comes to rural schools. But you've had the entire year. What is the delay? Does this not further disadvantage those learners? And number three, today is the 1-year anniversary since Enoch Mbianzi's death. I wonder what the department's view on that is, given the fact that that case is still outstanding. And also, I couldn't help but notice that the DG is also not here. Is this in line with COVID-19 regulations, or is he also ill? Thank you.
I can't believe the last question. I really can't believe that one. The DG is on the road. He's monitoring marking centers. And if you follow the department's platforms, all of them, they tell you where he is on a day-to-day, hour by hour. He's on the road as we speak. He held a media briefing 4 days ago. So I thought that would assist you. Oh yeah, it makes sense. Your news house, your media house is the only one that was not there at that media briefing. But I'm going to ask the DM to go first, and then Mr. Matthews will then come to provide support. DM. Yeah. So it was quite a long list of questions, so we'll need patience so they go through all of them one by one. Thank you.
Thank you. DG indicated that the researchers of the department. Yes, we do have the researchers of the department, and they are doing their work. We do have researchers in the Department of Health who are focusing on health-related matters as well as COVID-19. So these work together. Yes, the researchers of the department will do their work, and those ones will advise on whether we are ready to can move, like they advise the nation in everything that pertains to COVID-19 relations. So the issue here, health, the Ministerial Advisory Council indicated that primary schools can be opened, including early childhood development. So can be opened because in terms of their research, stats show that the younger children are not that much a risk as compared to older children who, when they come to school, will want to socialize, will want to do many other things. So, but as the CM said and look at the new variant, we said we are not well versed with the movement of this new variant. Let's just hold the coming back of learners by 2 weeks. Teachers will still go to school. That's why the calendar, school calendar, has not changed. It remains as is. So what is the plan? Because this new strain shows that it viral among the young people. I'm not a health specialist, but of course, health said high school withhold maybe by 2 weeks so that we observe what is happening in the health institutions. Then, even the high school, we have young people who are active. Like I indicated last year when we opened in June, there were so many pictures that were moving of learners when they see their friends for the first time. They will jump and hug and sometimes remove the masks. And that happened only in some high schools, not all, of course, because some young people are very responsible. They adhere to all the health protocols, and it's exactly what we're preaching to all of them, together with health, that let's observe and respect the health protocols, because that is the only way to fight the pandemic. So the plan moving forward, I indicated as I presented, want to strengthen, not to say that we are waiting, it covers even the last question, not to say that we are sitting and folding our arms and waiting for something that we don't know where it will come from. We have programs on ICT. We have programs, and it is running in many of our schools. In the presentations that we made here, even last year, we presented the partners that we are working with, which are taking education down to the rural areas where there is not even network. That's what is being done. That's what we have been saying. But what we say we want to strengthen in such a way that when a teacher is at home, must be able to communicate with his class. Unlike now, especially in rural areas, in cities and towns and some townships, teachers are able to communicate with their learners. Learners have gadgets that will be able to communicate with their teachers. Teachers will give them work, classworks, and mark. But that is not enough because it does not reach every part of South Africa. So we want to improve on that. We have teachers who are comorbidities. So when we say go home and stay, the teacher is at home, but will the teacher be in a position to work whilst at home? I'm saying this especially in deep rural areas. And the answer is no. And then it means it puts more strain on the teachers that is at school must work, do their work, and do the work of those teachers that are not at work in the rural areas. So we're improving, not to say we want to, we are putting systems to improve that each teacher must be able to communicate with learners. Of course, the curriculum last year was affected. That's why we see the overlap of 2020 to 2021. And we lost many days due to the pandemic. And at the time, we did not have plans. We started to have plans because we didn't plan for the pandemic because we didn't know that it will come. Then as it came, we started with the plans. And the plans are improving on a daily basis because we learn every day. To us, and it taught us so many lessons, which it's not only negative, but it is positive in its nature. Because now we're able to even think out of the box, knowing that distant communication will remain the issue and a priority. Is this year going to be worse? I cannot predict that standing here, that is this year going to be worse, but we all wish that this year should be better than last year. That's our wish and that's our prayer. So we don't know. I don't know. And even Minister Mutsecha doesn't know if this year is going to be worse. But we are committed to making sure that the children of South Africa get education and get quality education. That's why the question of a long-term planning will come and say, what is a long-term plan? The long-term plan is that we need to strengthen ICT. Strengthen. When I say strengthen, it means it is there, but we need to strengthen so that we are able to communicate even if we are not at school, like we are doing as people of the Republic of South Africa and all over the world. ECD centers, I responded, but ECD centers, they operate, of course, some like business, some as a school. When we say the sector is opening on the 25th, it includes ECD centers. They will go there, prepare for those young ones, and if they are ready, we are not saying they must wait until the 15th of February. If they see that they are ready, they can protect the health of the young ones, they will start coming because the sector is opened. So we cannot say we hold them back, especially the young ones, because parents have to go to work. So school fees for January, Mr. Matthews, you tick what I didn't cover much, you tick. School fees in January, yes, parents will pay. Remember, most of our independent schools, private schools, and quintile 4 and 5, they rely on the school fees from parents. And education has started. The academic year has started. When we say teachers are going to school in January, it means teachers must earn. Those that in independent schools and private schools, they earn from the money coming from parents. So we'll encourage them to pay. I know that the country is under a severe stress. Some parents lost their jobs. Let them come forward and indicate. You don't just send a child and then you stay away. Indicate. There will always be plans to cater for those that have lost their jobs, who do not have money. We cannot say learners must not go to school because their parents have lost their jobs. But school fees is encouraged to be paid to those parents who are still working and who were paying even in the past. Retirement. We have not learned of any teacher retiring just because I'm afraid of COVID-19. Yes, teachers are free to retire from any time at the age of 55 up to 65. They are able to retire, but we have not received massive or a storm of retirements or resignations. No, So, but as teachers report for duty on the 1st of February, we might, but we did not receive anything last year. What could cause the change this year? I don't see a change that teachers will just massively retire. We have two types of schools, the public schools. We have the fee-paying schools and the no-fee-paying schools. The no-fee-paying schools, we supply them, the department supplies them with books, textbooks, food, school nutrition, and everything, scholar transport. So there is no way where the department will say we don't provide them with masks because they are part of the support to the learners. So the quintile 1, 2, 3 are going to be supported with masks as well as sanitizers and all the PPEs that are related to schools in terms of the COVID-19. We did not bring statistics here of how many teachers that are infected. Yes, we do have teachers who got infected in the marking centers. Yes, some passed on, some are still sick, some have recovered. But that did not disturb marking. Marking went on in a smooth way, and almost 80% of marking is almost done. And remember, I indicated that we had a staggered marking. We started marking in December, and some papers were concluded, especially those papers with few learners. So we cannot say we don't have teachers that are infected. Our teachers are infected. Some learners are infected, but we don't have the statistics right now. The reopening of the schools will help us to get those statistics. What will happen if the situation remains unchanged? It's the same question as to, is this year going to be worse? We live. We are living. And we are living with the virus. If the situation remains unchanged, we find ways and means of making sure that education to our learners does take place. I spoke about all the private, the providers as well as partners of education and stakeholders who are working with the department to improve on e-learning. So if the situation gets worse, then e-learning will take up. Yeah, how many markers died? We didn't bring that information. We don't want to speculate. Yes, some did die, of course. Will department supply masks? Yes, to quintile 1 to 3. Will marking be completed on time? Yes, a very big yes. Marking will be completed on time. Let me leave. Elijah answered the question about the TG. There's nothing sinister. The TG is at work. We allowed him to continue because when we took a decision to come and brief the nation, he had already on his way to Mpumalanga. Like Elijah indicated that if you are following us, you would know exactly where the TG is. And when he finishes Mpumalanga, he goes to Limpopo. He's monitoring the exams and see that if everything running smooth. And the report that we keep on getting from him is that everything is well. And we are going to conclude marking on time, and the results will be announced on time as stipulated on the dates given. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Matthews.
Thank you very much, DM and Mr. Mhlang. I'll just consider some of the questions that were not responded to by DM. The first is there was a question of how many learners didn't pass last year. What would happen to them? Obviously, departments reconcile, provincial departments reconcile internal results, and determinations are made at that level as to what is it to do with the situation. But you'll recall at the very first media conference that the minister had, that the intention is not to have learners disadvantaged because of COVID-related challenges. So that matter will be taken into account, but we can't come here and say there are so many of those learners who couldn't make it or couldn't pass as it's put, and therefore the remedy would be A, B, C, D. So the part of the reopening of the SMT earlier than teachers and learners is for them to come up with plans to deal with challenges like that. I would want to supplement what the DM said on ECD centers. I would wish to remind the media that ECD centers are the prerogative of the Department of Social Development. There may be grade R in schools, which we are liable for, but there may be the setup that starts from pre-grade R or kindergarten or the crèches as we know them, going up to grade R, particularly those that provide ECD privately. So those are the prerogative of the Department of Social Development. But the grade Rs in schools are directly affected by what the DM is saying. We are one government. I would wish to emphasize that point. If a decision was taken by Cabinet to have all schooling, whether it starts from that level up to grade 12, will reopen or will have the reopening delayed to the extent that the DM has explained, that would be the case. We wish to emphasize again the point that when marking started, there were protocols that were defined for access into the marking centers. Some of the marking centers do testing outside the yards of the marking centers. Some have an arrangement, a different type of a facility that is earmarked for that type of a process. Some of the educators who came to marking centers didn't know their COVID status. They were found when they were tested at the marking centers that some of them could have been positive. And of course, the remedies that go with that were actually applied. It's not necessarily that it's the marking centers that caused the infection. Some came with infections not knowing that they're actually infected. Okay. The long-term plan for schools will be determined by the SMT of each of those schools. It's not a determination that the national department can make that one. There's a question on the risk of learners losing their right to basic education. You see, we're doing these things to preserve life. Education is delivered to people who are alive. So if you don't deal with the prerequisite, which is saving lives, it would be difficult to actually look into the unfettered right to basic education. There is no condition on that right. That right must be delivered. But we must ensure the life for that right to be delivered. So it's not a chicken and egg issue. It's an imperative that you must teach somebody who's alive. We must save those lives. We must ensure that those children are healthy. We must ensure their safety for us to be able to provide that right, that unfettered right or unconditional right to basic education. There was a question on implementing the ICTs. Remember, any program that you deliver, particularly for private schools, is fund-related. If you take the majority of the schools in the country, the majority of them are no-fee schools. You can make a guesstimate between 70 and 80% of those schools are entirely dependent on government funding. Now, I'm not the Minister of Finance, but as the media, you'd know the economic situation in the country. You'd know what needed to be done last year for us to actually respond to COVID challenges last year, which in my view may be the same case this year. Now, ICTs is a program that is rolled out systematically and progressively. You'll recall even the department has a conditional grant for ICT-related imperatives. Now, but it's not an issue that you can actually want to like drop like rain. It drops like rain. It doesn't happen like that way. It's a matter that needs proper planning, but it's a matter that is considered by the departments. If you spoke with the MEC in Limpopo, she will tell you how eager she is to have ICT rollout effected in the province of Limpopo. Mr. Mhlanga is advising me that I should inform you that there are 2 deaths from marking centers that we know at this stage. Whether they were infected in the marking center, we can't say that for now, but that's the situation. Maybe DG, when he does his briefing about the monitoring oversight that is providing, he'll be able to speak more on that one. DM has already responded to the question, what happens if the situation doesn't change? The number of teachers and learners who've tested positive, I'm not sure I understood that question quite well because the schools haven't reopened yet. So I would take it that the teachers that you're talking about may be teachers who are in the marking centers, which will gladly provide those stats when the DG does the briefing. Or the question could relate to how many teachers or learners were affected from 2020. Maybe it's a matter, as Mr. Mhlanga was saying, we're not ready to provide stats because we don't want to mislead you. Mr. Mhlanga can deal with that response at a later stage. The last question relates to the anniversary of the boy who drowned in the excursion of the school in Gauteng. You will recall that Gauteng is managing this matter. There was this matter was taken to court, if you recall. There was a determination that was made there. We are of the view that it's in the correct hands of the Department of Education in Gauteng. So you may want to refer that question to the Gauteng Department of Education. I think I've covered the ones DM you had referred to me. Thank you very much, Mr. Mhlanga.
The last round. The last round, if it's there. It's not there.
Thank you, DM. Thanks, Mathematicians. Let's check if there's a last round. The DM says I must check if there's a last round so that we can conclude. What's up?
Thanks, Mr. Mhlanga. Yes, we have some few questions.
Okay, let's go for it.
Wonga Sirai from Inkonjan FM. Is the department ready to start using visual classes? What about the lower grades? Tabo Klomatsana from ETV. How much of the COVID relief funds gone to education were assigned to the setting up of the e-learning? Why is this not a priority in 2021? I have Nazir from Cloud TV. If the reason for now extending the opening of schools for the new year is the high rise of COVID-19 cases and not whether schools are prepared for PPEs, why all schools not to be opened on the 15th of Feb, including all private schools? And I have another question from Janjan Jobert from Marula Media. Okay, this one is, okay, I'll ask it, Mr. Mhlanga. Is it correct that the head of examination, Dr. Rufus Polea, has tested positive for COVID? What has the effect been on the metric exam? And then I have another question. I think DM has answered this one, but I'll ask the first one. It's from Tando Kubega, Eyewitness News. With the reopening of schools now postponed to next month, will those parents that have paid school fees for January be refunded? And then I have Kosikona Duma from Eyewitness News. You need some clarity on delayed payments for teachers' assistants. Who is supposed to pay them? Is it the National Department, that means DBE, or Treasury, or provincial government? Is the money transferred to school accounts, and are schools supposed to make the payments? And has the vetting process been concluded in all provinces? How many teachers' assistants have been hired in total? And then I have another question. From Evelyn Morris, Custom Local Media. Okay. No, I think those are only questions, Mr. Mklanga. The rest are the similar ones that we asked before.
Yeah. And I can also say that some of them are starting to repeat. That's a very good indication that that's the last round.
Yeah. Let him start, then I will conclude.
All right, we'll do so. I can attempt some.
Yeah.
Yes, it's correct. Dr. Paula tested positive for COVID, but is recovered. There was no impact to the work that he does, because it's marking only that is taking place now. And the colleagues in his section have been continuing with the work. Remember, it's not a one-man show. It's a sector responsibility to ensure that the work happens. He is ably assisted by colleagues in provinces who are also heads of examinations. All that he does is a coordinating function from DBE, so there was no interruption there. In fact, if you recall, at the media briefing which the DG held earlier this week, Dr. Paula's director was the one who was delivering the presentation, and she did very well. So that goes to show the capacity within the department to continue, even if one person is off sick. So that's my attempt at providing a response to that one. But the second one is on the education initiative. Yes, the grant was approved by Treasury, National Treasury, but the money is in provincial education departments, who are the ones facilitating the payments to the education assistants. The total number is 300,000, but 200,000 are education assistants. The others are general assistants. When schools reopen, they will be fully given the orientation, because they started at different times, and some started just as schools were about to close. So that work continues in provinces, and we expect that they will do a great job of assisting the department when schools open. So, DM, that's my take, but I'm going to hand over now to Mr. Matthews to continue with the rest of the questions, and then DM will follow thereafter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mklang. Thanks, Udia. Let me start with the question that Mr. Mklang responded to last on the payment of teacher assistants. He's explained the process for the allocation of the funds for that matter. But what I want to emphasize is that there is no service that is paid for in advance. You serve or provide the service, you get paid for it. Some of his teacher assistants have not begun to do their work. So you wouldn't have paid them in advance. You'd wait for them to do the work, for them to be paid. There are different modalities that have been followed in this area. Remember, the money, as Mr. Mklang had already said, was transferred to the provinces. The majority of the provinces chose to transfer the money to the schools, which would be the practice as we are now to reopen the schools. There's one province that decided to pay those teacher assistants and general assistants via the PESAL system, which is the Eastern Cape. The rest of them, from the time we actually dealt with this matter, were informed that the monies will be transferred to the schools. So part of the return of the SMTs earlier will include that type of a function as to how those funds will actually be managed. And that goes hand in glove with the vetting of those teacher assistants, because it's a critical one, this one. It's vetting for security imperatives. Remember, you need to know who we are exposing the children to, because there are lots of challenges that the country is faced with, social challenges that the country is facing with. On top of the list, GBV. So you don't want somebody who has a record in that area to be exposed to children at schools of whatever age. So we need to be very clear, and that process needs to take its time so that we ensure the safety of the children at the schools. Visual classes are actually happening in schools that are able to provide visual classes, or virtual. We call it virtual learning, not visual, basically. Virtual learning is happening for those schools that are able to provide that. Remember, parents last year were given an option of keeping their children at school. They must come to school, fetch the work. The children do the work at home. The parents has a responsibility of taking that work back to the school for it to be assessed, and the next work is actually provided to the parents. So that has been happening. It's been happening in that fashion, and there is no reason that that process should be changed. One area that DM, we forgot to say this, that the Health Minister Advisory Committee said was that we should discourage platooning as part of the options that we're actually providing this year. Because apparently they picked some challenges on the rate of infection that relates to platooning. It's a matter that the sector will be looking into, so that we find a way to discourage platooning as much as we can. Of course, taking into account the question that was asked on the rights to basic education, which is unfettered. The question on the relief fund we have addressed, because Mr. Mhlanga has responded to that question. That's why we have teacher assistants, we've got this general assistance that we have in the schools. Why are all schools not open on the 15th? All schools are going to be reopened on the 15th. Primary schools, secondary schools, as we indicated, even independent schools are trying to persuade their schools to actually follow that date of the 15th of February. And the challenges are COVID related, there's nothing else. Would want to state that upright so that there's no confusion on that one. Will parents who have paid for January be... Remember, school fees are determined by SGBs in the schools themselves. And this matter is a matter of the SGB and the school and the parents within those schools to actually make a determination. I was telling DM on Tuesday that we have received a couple of inquiries on this matter with parents asking. In fact, at the time the schools were going to reopen on the 27th, they were already asking whether they are liable for the month of January. And the simple response is that is the case, because the AGM of that school would have made that determination knowing that the schools are reopening on the 27th. So if there's a reprieve that the school would determine, it's not a matter that we actually can direct at this level, that all schools must actually refund the parents who have paid for the January month. Remember, as DM had said, there are SGB appointed educators, there are SGB appointed support staff within the schools, like cleaners and so on and so on. So those people still have to be paid because they have a right to that salary. Okay, so, but the schools must make a determination on that one, and to the extent to which they will deal with it. I think that was the last question that I have in my list. Thank you, dear.
This is your mask.
Oh, sorry. Thank you very much. You must sanitize.
Yeah, I'll sanitize after touching. Thank you again, Mr. Mhlanga and the team. I think Mr. Mhlanga and Mr. Matthews covered almost all the questions. I was looking at my list here. Yeah, on the vetting of education assistants, and Mhlanga indicated that indeed we were given 300,000 posts to help young people who are unemployed. as the sector in the whole country, of course, and 200 must be education assistants and 100 general assistants. As Mr. Matthews indicated, we need to vet them. They are going to be where the children are. So the Children's Act will push us to make sure that we get right people to work with children. It just cannot be anyone. So let me take this opportunity to thank the media for making sure that our nation gets informed about what is happening around them. And I want to thank the sterling leadership of Minister of Basic Education, Umam Angie Motshekga, the 9 MECs of education, heads of departments, and all our social partners, your teacher unions, parents, associations, and other stakeholders for their availability always when we need them, for guidance and for advices, because we cannot see everywhere. The department cannot see everywhere, but they are in touch with the ground. They are able to conscientize us on the things that were on the blind side. So we are living under difficult circumstances that require commitment, dedication, sacrifice, and selflessness. We need to ensure that in all what we do, we put health and safety as our apex priority. All of us, whether in the education sector or beyond, health is very important. We convey our condolences to all families who have lost their loved ones due to COVID-19. These families in the sector of basic education, they include the Superintendent General in the Eastern Cape, who was laid to rest yesterday. Some circuit managers, some senior managers in the sector and in government in general. So we must not politicize COVID-19. We must make sure that we work together across even political organizations and media to make sure that they become a vanguard of their country, South Africa, to protect the lives of the people of South Africa. May the departed souls rest in peace. What is required now is absolute vigilance, alertness, and most of all, strict adherence to the health, safety protocols, as well as we keep social distancing measures. We wash our hands with water and soap, we sanitize, and we work together. We don't criticize one another, we conscientize one another, and where one's eye may not reach, let's conscientize that person that, look, you are falling to a danger, and we will conquer this virus together. I thank you.
Yeah, you were sanitizing for the last time. Thank you so much, DM. Thank you, Mr. Matthews. Colleagues, we've come to the end of the briefing. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Let's keep engaging using those other platforms that we all know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, the whole nation had been awaiting this one. There you have it. We were expecting the Minister of Education, Angie Motshekga, who is apparently not well, off ill, and the Deputy Minister, Ms. Regina Mohaule, there making that announcement that together with the Council of Education and other stakeholders, they've made a decision to have a delay in the opening of schools, and saying that school management teams will go in on the 25th of January. This will be done in tranches. The 25th of January, the 25th of January will be school management teams. On the 1st of February, it will be the teachers, and then the learners will go into school on Monday, the 15th of February. Of course, this was something we linked our question of the day to. You're welcome to continue engaging with us at the agenda_SABC in terms of your reactions to that announcement.